is making the new hire with Lincoln Riley as their head football coach. As seems to be the case when there's a coaching change, you have guys that are coming in that weren't there previously through the transfer portal. You've also got guys that are going out, and so there's a lot of news. Let's start with Caleb Williams. That's a name that was really popular here in Mississippi because there were folks that thought, hey, maybe Ole Miss has got a shot. It appears as if Caleb Williams is going to end up with his former head coach at Southern Cal. How confident are you that that's actually going to happen?
I think once Jackson Dart entered the portal, I think most people around here became pretty confident it would happen. But I mean, that was 2 days ago, and I think some of the fans out here are starting to get a little bit concerned about the wait, and they're like, why hasn't Caleb Williams announced anything for USC yet? But I think he's going to be taking his time. I know Pete Zamel reported that last week that they weren't going to rush into any decision anytime soon, and I think just from talking to people that have been around, and they've been like, yeah, it's not gonna happen soonish, I don't think, and so I think it's kind of wait and see. But I think USC it seems like they're in a good position for Caleb Williams.
Is USC on the quarter system where he's got a little bit longer before he's got to enroll, or do they operate on the semester system where it's got to happen in the next week or two?
Yeah, they're on the semester system, and I believe the last day for him to officially register for classes is the 17th. So he still has about a couple of days, almost a week before he has to kind of make up his mind.
Okay, well, we'll see where that goes. Obviously, huge news with Jackson Dart entering the portal, and also Michael Trigg, and those are. Again, two names that, because it looks like Ole Miss wants and needs to add a quarterback through the transfer portal, immediately popped up. I kind of tweeted about something about that when Dart went into the portal the other day. I said, well, it sounds like this officially ends the speculation about any possibility of Caleb Williams to Ole Miss, and immediately will begin the speculation of Jackson Dart to Ole Miss. Sounds like both he and Trigg are going to visit this weekend. I think that's what Ole Miss and those sides are trying to work out. What are you hearing about that in particular, or is that a story that you're even still covering?
I know that Dart and Trigg. I know Ole Miss is making a push for Dart. John David Baker recruited Trigg when he was at USC, and obviously is at Ole Miss now. So. And that all makes sense to me, and I know I'm going to follow those guys and just what they do, just because I thought, when they were out here, they had the potential to be really, really good players, especially Dart. Trigg's a little bit more on the raw side, but he still has a lot of potential. But Dart obviously is a guy who I thought, and a lot of people out here thought, was going to be the future of USC's program. I think if they would have hired anyone but Lincoln Riley, he would still be at USC and probably be the runaway favorite to be the starter here next year. So I'm going to be following those guys for a while, and I'm interested to see how the process works for them. I think a place like Ole Miss would be good for both, just because you know what Lane does with quarterbacks, and we've seen what he's done with tight ends. And I know Trigg, from talking to his father, he wants to be a high volume pass catcher at tight end, and Kenny Yeboah has done that at Ole Miss in Lane's first year, and then Lane had that good tight end at FAU. So that's something Lane has shown he can do at both positions for both of those guys.
So tell me more about Jackson Dart, because he pops in his first game. So against Washington State, and I guess that was after the early injury to Slovis, he comes in and throws for 391 yards and 4 touchdowns. But then he doesn't play again until the end of October, I guess, when there was another injury. And a lot of injuries, maybe some opt-outs along the way. That was a different SC team after the coaching change down the stretch. So Ole Miss or whomever, what are they going to get with Jackson Dart?
I hate to say this because I know how good Matt Corral is and how good he was for Ole Miss, but he's kind of similar to Matt Corral. He's bigger, so it's not as fast as Corral. but he moves and he has a live arm. It's not as live as Matt Corral's, but he has a really live arm. So the playing style is kind of similar. It's that playing style when Corral was younger, to where it almost kind of bordered on fearless/reckless, and there's that kind of fine line in between. Dart takes a lot of risks, especially with his body. He's a really tough runner, and obviously Corral did that as well. And we saw that this season. And he has a big arm, and he can make plays on the move, and he can extend plays. And I think that's why USC fans found him so appealing. They're more of a traditional drop back, Keaton Slovis, JT Daniels kind of quarterback program, and Dart gave them that ability of, something like a Sam Darnold had, to where they can move around a little bit and he can make plays, and that's what USC needed because their offensive line wasn't that great. But he's also got a personality that a lot of kids over here just gravitated toward. We saw that in spring, that this is one of the guys who a lot of these players are going to, rally around. And USC hasn't had many players like that in the past couple of years, but Dart, you knew in the future he had the potential to be, the leader of this team, and even older players just kind of rallied around him when he played. Obviously, there was the torn meniscus, when he tore his meniscus the first half of the Washington State game. That was the first game he played. He played the whole second half on a torn meniscus and threw for 390 yards and 4 touchdowns. So he's a tough kid, and then he came back later that season and started the final 3 games. They were all losses, but he showed the flashes, and I think if he was in a better offensive system, he would have gotten a little more help scheme-wise. That would have made things easier for him. But he showed a lot of potential, and there's still room to grow in terms of taking fewer risks with his body and with some of his throws. But he's a competitive guy, and in a similar vein to Matt Corral.
So with Jackson Dart, if not Ole Miss, then where? He's from Utah. I've heard some mentions of BYU, which I think BYU's got some talented quarterbacks on the roster. It's a spot where you have to probably go in and win a job. Similar at Utah, good young quarterback there. People have mentioned West Virginia because his former offensive coordinator Graham Harrell has gone to West Virginia. Do you hear anything that makes you think, okay, Ole Miss might be the leader? How important is it for them to get him on campus? Got about a minute and a half left.
Yeah, I think that Dart. When I asked somebody over here, they said Ole Miss and they said BYU as well. So I think those are probably going to be the 2 front runners. We'll see if Oklahoma decides to get into anything with Dart. I know they have Dylan Gabriel, in the mix over there. I was wondering if UCLA was going to do anything with Dart because they were one of his finalists when he signed with USC. It was them and Arizona State, and BYU was kind of on the outside looking in. So I think, but Dorian Thompson-Robinson just came back, and he was their starter last year, so I don't know if that's going to be an option really that much anymore. So I would think Ole Miss is in a good spot. It just we'll see if BYU and Oklahoma can kind of do anything to get in the mix.
And then last thing for you, is there a comp in your mind for Michael Trigg, the tight end who you described earlier as raw but really talented?
It's hard to come up with a player-specific comp, but he's one of those guys who are kind of like, the tight end, but like a wide receiver in a tight end body. He's a guy who could run really, really well, and he's hard to bring down. He's 6'4", 245 pounds with a basketball background, and he's a guy you're going to throw a lot of jump balls to. And we saw that at SC early on and during training camp, and there was a play in Colorado where he won a jump ball and then stayed on his feet and went 50 yards for a touchdown. So he's a really talented guy, and he's kind of one of the more of those basketball player tight end types. Who's going to win a lot of jump balls and kind of box out the DBs and win those contested catch situations.